Hi, good afternoon. My name is Agent Greg Lewis with the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission. On today's issue or episode of TABC Talks, we're going to be discussing public safety and retail locations. If you guys have questions or comments, or as we're giving a presentation, feel free to join the chat. If you click on the box that says chat, and you can type in there, and I can see what you're asking, and I can try to provide responses as we go through the presentation. So basically, on today's episode, we're going to be covering enforcement's function, minors, intoxicated persons, drugs, breaches of the peace, sale or consumption during prohibited hours, human trafficking, and then we'll do a brief summary afterwards. These are basically the priority violations that TABC covers out in the field. So starting with enforcement's function. This is a brief overview of what we do. TABC agents, we are fully empowered state police officers with statewide criminal jurisdiction, and we may make arrests for any offenses we see in our presence. TABC's policy or police authority is focused on licensed locations and individuals who commit violations of the Alcoholic Beverage Code. Agents place priority on locations that commit public safety violations, and we'll be discussing those during the presentation. So, as far as priority locations, TABC agents, we conduct inspections at licensed locations that have histories of violations. These permit holders become known as priority locations. When a licensed location is involved in certain administrative actions or criminal actions, it indicates a risk to public safety. And we refer to these breaches of the law as priority public safety violations. So the 6 violations we go over are going to be dealing with minors, sale to minors, permitting minors to possess or consume alcoholic beverages, intoxicated persons, drugs, as they deal with the licensees, permittees, employees, and patrons on the licensed premise, breaches of the peace, sale or consumption during prohibited hours, and human trafficking. So let's start with minors, which is the first topic. This section, we're going to cover violations of the Alcoholic Beverage Code as they affect minors at licensed locations. So a definition, according to the Alcoholic Beverage Code, a minor is defined as a person who is under 21 years of age. So as far as selling to a minor, it's a violation. A person commits a violation if they knowingly, with criminal negligence, sell an alcoholic beverage to a minor. A person who sells an alcoholic beverage to a minor does not commit an offense if the minor falsely represents himself or herself to be 21 years of age or older by displaying an apparently valid proof of identification. And there's criteria for that, and the criteria has to be apparently issued by a government entity, cannot be expired, and it looks and matches the descriptors of the person that's presenting the ID. Those are the defenses for a licensee or permittee. This does not apply to a person who has access to electronically readable information and identities as an ID as invalid. So, concerning minors as well. So, the penalty against a retailer can be up to 90-day suspension or cancellation if it is found that the licensee or permittee sold, served, dispensed, or delivered an alcoholic beverage to a minor or allowed a minor to consume or possess an alcoholic beverage on a licensed premise. And the section of the code you can refer to that is right there is 106.13. As far as a legal responsibility, we're concerned with only the person who serves, sells, delivers, or dispenses the alcoholic beverage is one who's going to be legally responsible for the sale. So it's always the responsibility of the person delivering the beverage to verify the identity or the age of the person receiving the alcoholic beverage. Simply saying that the door guy checked my ID or someone else already did is not going to apply. We definitely suggest and we reinforce there's nothing wrong with employees asking again before serving or delivering alcoholic beverages to a patron on a licensed premise. So our focus really is on the retailer rather than writing tickets to minors. We're looking at the retailer. That's the main issue. So the focus is based on the retailer being held accountable as a source. Essentially, the minor purchases it from the retailer. That's who's going to be responsible for allowing the minor to possess, consume, or purchase alcoholic beverage. So retailers who comply with the law prevent minors from obtaining alcoholic beverages. It is quite simply that simple. To ensure voluntary compliance amongst retailers, TABC regularly conducts underage compliance operations at on and off-premise retailers. So with that, essentially the old term was called minor stings. We conduct those on a regular basis. We do on and off-premise locations across the state, and we step up those operations during special events like South by Southwest in Austin, Austin city limits, Fiesta in San Antonio, and other events around the state that are similar. So the consequences to an employee or the licensee or permittee, the criminal side is a Class A misdemeanor. That's up to a year in jail and $4,000 fine if they sell, serve, or deliver an alcoholic beverage to a minor with criminal negligence. So a license location itself can receive a violation that may be suspended the sale of alcoholic beverages for 8 to 12 days at a fine or rated up to $300 a day. One thing that is provided for retailers is what we call safe harbor. So license locations can be exempted from administrative action for sale to minors or intoxicated persons or non-members of a private club if they meet the following criteria. So policy and procedures must be read and understood by employees. Employers have not directly or indirectly encouraged the employee to violate the law. The person selling is not the owner or the officer of the licensee or permittee. All employees must have been TABC server training certified. And employees have 30 days to be certified from the date of hire. If the newly hired employee gets a violation and is not certified, then safe harbor cannot apply. So there have been more than 2 of these types of violations in a 12-month period. So that's the criteria. As long as you meet those, and in more cases than not, in licensed locations, it's going to be eligible for safe harbor. As far as prevention, basically it's for starters, recognizing fake and false IDs. The simple acronym to remember is FLAG. So feel imperfections, overlays, bubbles, rough edges, the texture, the quality of the backing for the ID. So look at it, look at the ID, make sure the person presenting it is a person on the ID. Don't just assume because they hand the ID, take your time, look at it, pay attention, look at details of the person's face, make sure it matches. Ask questions like the address, date of birth, when they graduated high school to see if the person knows the information, or ask for a second form of ID. And go slow. Go slow enough that you don't miss the first 3. Take your time, don't rush. So, and then another part of this is know your company policies, how to check IDs, what IDs does a company accept, when to refuse a sale, how to refuse a sale, how to handle difficult customers, when to get management involved. Make sure employees understand these basic things, and it helps to prevent the sale of alcoholic beverages to minors. So on the fake and false IDs, some of the basic features for Texas IDs, if you look on the one on the left, you'll see like the overlapping data. It should have the signature that overlaps the photo. There should be fine line, it's called microprinting in the background. Across the top, like on the Capitol, it says Capital City across the top in very fine letters across the tops of the buildings. It says Capital City Skyline. The variable print where the birthday is, if you look at that, it's going to be microdotted. If you look with a magnifying glass, you can see that it's not solid colored. It is very tiny microdotted printed. The security features on there. Look at the hashtags on the right. Should have very specific designs in there on the right side. On the back side, the magnetic stripe, it should be more black in color and less brown. The 2-dimensional barcode, you can even go so far as you can download apps that'll decode the 2-dimensional barcode, and should pull up the information that's on there, and that should match what is printed on the front. As far as determining which IDs belong to minors, which don't, in Texas, we make it easy. Typically for someone who's under 21, their driver's license is going to be vertical in nature. On the top, it'll say under 21 until that birth date. If they're not reached it, they're under 21. If they pass that birth date, they're 21. But the first clue is going to be a vertical driver's license. So that means that the employees, licensees and permittees, should scrutinize the ID a little bit closer. So moving on, let's talk about intoxicated persons. So intoxicated persons, by definition, an intoxicated person or intoxication, according to Texas Penal Code, is not having normal use of mental and physical faculties by the reason of introduction of alcohol, controlled substance, drug, or combination of those. The caveat to this is the blood alcohol concentration level 0.08 or more, but that is not the finite determination on that. You have to consider the other factors. Someone can be intoxicated and not have any alcohol in their system. It can be from prescription medications. It can be from illegal narcotics. So it's always important for licensees and employees and permittees to evaluate the customer. Take their time. If they feel that something isn't right, there's nothing that says you have to sell. So public intoxication basically is when someone is intoxicated in a public place to the degree that they pose a danger to themselves or others. So typically for a Class C misdemeanor of public intoxication, it's maximum of a $500 fine. And typically if someone is arrested for that, they're taken to either an alcohol treatment facility center, like here in Austin we have now, or if they are taken to a county jail, typically they wait it out for 4 hours or reevaluate it before they're released from the jail to a responsible party. So if a licensee or permittee sells to an intoxicated person, the consequences on the criminal side, it's a fine of up to a year in jail or $500 if they sell, serve, or deliver an alcoholic beverage to an intoxicated person with criminal negligence. So a licensed location, as far as the administrative side, can receive a violation that includes a suspension for the sale of an alcoholic beverage for up to 8 to 12 days, or payment of the fine at a rate of $300 a day. When a licensed location stops sales to an intoxicated person, they prevent customers from getting intoxicated from drinking or drinking to the point of intoxication. They also intoxicated persons from purchasing more alcoholic beverages. It also prevents intoxicated persons from driving motor vehicles and possibly harming themselves or others. And it also prevents serious consequences from the employee or a retailer or a customer, and that can occur simply fines, criminal action, or dram shop liability. So by prevention, be aware of the signs of intoxication. Basic things. The customer leans against the structures for support. They're overly excited, speaks loudly or profanely, bloodshot glassy eyes, droopy eyelids, tired appearance, slow deliberate movements, incoherence. They're having difficulty processing basic thoughts. So as far as retailer practices, things you guys can do to prevent this is don't announce things like last call, so you don't have that rush to the bar and people are trying to get more alcoholic beverages before closing time. Don't sell shots or provide bottle service after 1 a.m. Don't allow promotions that encourage customers to drink to excess. For instance, buy-ins are not legal in Texas. Pay one price to drink until you fall down doesn't work in the state. It's illegal. Bottomless drinks are also illegal in Texas. So do not sell or serve oversized drinks in oversized containers after midnight. Selling gigantic margaritas after midnight. Have a plan in place on a location how to deal with intoxicated customers, whether to have something, have it worked out with your employees, with staff, if you have bouncers, etc. Have a plan on how to deal with this. Maybe you're working with local law enforcement, see how you get them involved to be able to deal with that. At 2 a.m., turn on the lights and observe any intoxicated patrons. Have a plan. If you have this situation, you have intoxicated patrons, find them a ride, get them a ride. Do something to make sure that they are safe. So as far as the violations with Safe Harbor, so again, Safe Harbor applies to selling alcoholic beverages to intoxicated persons, and the qualifications are going to be the same as we already discussed. So that's going to be policy and procedures must have been read and understood and signed off by employees. Employers have not directly or indirectly encouraged employees to violate the law. The person selling is not the owner or the officer of the licensee or permittee of a location. All employees have been seller certified within 30 days. And if employees have 30 days to be certified from the date of hire. So, and finally, there have not been more than 2 of these types of violations in the last 12-month period. So again, Safe Harbor applies only for sell intoxicated persons and sell to minors. Let's discuss drugs a little bit, dive into this. The section is going to be covering how drugs apply to licensed locations. So narcotics as defined in the Health and Safety Code is any substance including controlled substances, counterfeit substances, which are controlled substances that bear actual or simulated trademarks or other actual manufacturer or distributor of the substance, marijuana, and synthetic cannabinoids. So as far as violations of the Alcoholic Beverage Code, no person authorized to sell distilled spirits or beer at a retail location may engage in or permit on the premises the following acts. That's going to be possession of a narcotic or synthetic cannabinoid or any equipment used or designed for administering of a narcotic or synthetic cannabinoid, or permitting a person on a licensed premises to do so. So this applies to your patrons and your employees. So violations to this to include actions by a patron. So, make sure it's under control. Make sure your employees are watching for this or your patrons are doing it. Make sure that your employees are not doing this on your premises. Because basically it's a violation to allow these offenses on the premises under the licensee or permittee's control. An employee's action is considered the same as an actual licensee or permittee holder who committed the act. Do we have any questions on any of this up till now? Okay. So moving along, the consequences for this, it's pretty hefty. Suspension of 25 to 35 days or a fine up to $300 a day, or the permit may be canceled for cause. And the section for that in the Alcohol Beverage Code is 104.01. So as far as prevention, permittees and employees need to monitor patrons on a licensed location. Remove said patrons and contact local law enforcement. Employers need to be diligent about making sure employees are not possessing, using, or selling narcotics in a licensed location. Let's talk about breaches of the peace. A breach of the peace is basically it's going to fall into two categories. So it's going to be disturbance. It's going to have aggravated or simple. So let's start with simple breaches of the peace. In a simple breach of the peace, there's no serious bodily injury and no deadly weapons are utilized. A licensee or permittee has 3 days to report that to TABC, and that can be done coming in person, giving a written statement, by fax, using our app, or sending an email to breachthepeace@tabc.texas.gov. An aggravated breach is when serious bodily injury has occurred and or deadly weapons are utilized. 24 hours is a time limit for licensee or permittee to report that to TABC. In the same way, so in person with a written statement, give a statement via email, fax, or utilize our app. So as far as penalties for a simple breach of the peace, so the breach is determined that it could have been prevented. This is the penalties on administrative level: 3 to an 18-day suspension of license or permit, or even cancellation of that license or permit, and the fine is about $300 a day based on the days that are imposed against the location. An aggravated breach, 25 to 35 days suspension of license or permit, and or cancellation of the license or permit, and again, $300 a day. So here's the methods for reporting a breach of the peace. So I'll give you guys a second or two. You guys can write those down. Online, right there is tabc.texas.gov / breach of peace. Also email breachofpeace@tabc.texas.gov. By fax, you send it to the appropriate regional office for that. And on all of these, when you're completing this, if you have a police report number, please include that on the breach of peace. So that way, if we need to, we can always reference that back. We can go to that local law enforcement agency and we can pull that report and review it. Because if you guys fail to report a breach of the peace, the penalty is 2 to 12 day suspension or cancellation of the permit, and it's $300 a day in lieu of the suspension. All right. As far as why, prevention, that's what it boils down to. Monitor patrons for aggressive behavior or language towards others. We've seen this in licensees or permittees, especially on on-premise locations. Especially, you can see the fight building. You have two people, they start arguing, say watching a football game, someone bumped into someone else. Separating them doesn't always work. Typically, we're going to advise you remove those persons, because if you just separate them, it's very likely they'll come back together later on, and then you'll have the breach of the peace. So locate a responsible party to take custody of the person or persons involved, the instigators. Contact local law enforcement if the situation persists. Consider banning those patrons if there are continual problems. If every time the same patrons come in, they're causing problems with other patrons, maybe time to ban them and prevent them from coming ever again, so that you have a good, safe environment for your regular patrons. Let's talk about sale or consumption during prohibited hours. So standard hours of sale, I'll let you guys glance over that. In most standard hours county, that's going to be the standard hours of sale. Remember, on Sunday for that too, sale do not begin until noon, unless it's on an on-premise location, so like a restaurant or bar that serves food. Then beginning at 10 a.m., they can start serving alcoholic beverages with the service of food. So that means if they placed an order and food is coming and it's imminent, then they can order alcoholic beverages. They cannot order alcoholic beverages before while they're looking at the menu. And of course, extended hours, that's going to be locations, on-premise locations that have an extended hours permit from TABC that allows them to sell until 2 a.m. in extended hours locations, or counties or cities that allow for extended hours. Consumption basically is going to be 15 minutes after the hour. So consumption in a public place in Texas falls under these guidelines. If a county is the extended hours county, consumption ends at 2:15, or extended hours community, then that's going to be till 2:15. And I'm sorry, extended hours, sorry about that. Standard hours, it's going to be at 12:15, or Saturday into Sunday morning at 1:15. Extended hours, everything ends at 2:15. Remember that a licensed location is a public place. So that means consumption on a licensed premise or on-premise consumption in an extended hours is going to end at 2:15. In a standard hours area, it'll end at 12:15, with the exception of Saturday into Sunday. That'll be at 1:15. Here's the consequences. If a licensee or permittee sells or permits consumption during prohibited hours of an alcoholic beverage on a licensed premise, it's a Class A misdemeanor. You're in jail, $1,000 fine is the maximum on that. Administrative side for the licensee or permittee, they're looking at a 5 to 7 day suspension or a $300 fine per day in lieu of that suspension. So basically, when you're preventing, why prevention is important for this. Violation of selling or serving out, or permitting consumption in prohibited hours. Well, simple things, you can prevent this. Start picking up drinks from patrons with plenty of time to spare before meeting the cutoff time for consumption. Monitor the sale of alcoholic beverages prior to last call so that patrons aren't making that last rush for the bar. That way you avoid a situation where someone bought 2 beers at $1.55 and they're expected to consume those last 2 beers before you cut them off. Prevent that. Don't allow it to occur. Collect unattended alcoholic beverages prior to last call. Utilize bar time clock settings. It's a quite common practice. A lot of on-premise locations, their clocks will run a little bit fast and run faster than real time. So it allows that comfort zone, or that comfort time period, so they can start picking up drinks and they can start letting their customers know time is imminent and they're going to take their drinks away or end consumption at the predetermined time. Lastly, let's discuss human trafficking. So this section covers violations of the Alcoholic Beverage Code as they affect human trafficking. So this is the definition that the Texas Attorney General has put out. Human trafficking is a recruitment, harboring, transporting, or procurement of a person for labor or services for involuntary servitude, slavery, or forced commercial sexual acts. Simply, trafficking is modern day slavery. So the consequences from the Alcoholic Beverage Commission, we will suspend, cancel a permit or license for a location that has violations of human trafficking. On the prevention side, licensed locations are required to post signage. The signage is available at your local TABC office, and we will happily provide that to you. It has to be posted in employee areas, and we provide them in English and Spanish. And the way the wording is on there is, as you see on the screen, warning, obtain forced labor or services is a crime under the Texas law. Call the National Human Trafficking Hotline. The phone number's there, and it says you may remain anonymous. So there's basic ways that you can look for signs. It's a huge list, but it's not overly so. It's pretty concise. There's a link on there. Take a moment, please. I urge you guys, write that number down, or that website down, look it up, and there's the signs, and you can see basically what's in there, what to look for. Train your employees to look for the stuff. You are the eyes and ears for these people. They do not have a voice. They cannot escape. You have to be able to recognize it. Contact local law enforcement. Get these people help. Get them out. You may just save somebody's life from this. And another thing too, please, 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 I urge you to ask your employees or have your next training session. Watch the video from the AG's office website called Be the One. It is an excellent 30-minute presentation that covers human trafficking, how it functions, how it works, and how it's occurring on an everyday basis in the open. And that's basically their best way to function is they hide it out in the open. You have to look for the signs. You'll start picking up. If you see these, please contact your local law enforcement, get them involved. If you know if it's occurring on a licensed premise, contact TABC. We can start investigating. We can start working on these situations. So do we have any questions on anything up to now? If there's anything comes up, contact TABC. That's our phone number for headquarters. Contact your local TABC agent or local office. You can also send emails to us. We'll be happy to respond to you and get you answers. And if we don't know the answer immediately, I guarantee you, we'll find out. We'll get back with you. Our goal is to work with y'all so we have voluntary compliance and a fabulous working relationship with our permittees and licensees. So, any questions from anybody? Give about another minute or so and see if anybody wants to chime in or have anything to it, and then we'll conclude. Okay, well, thank you for watching. Again, any questions, please contact your local TABC office. We'll be happy to help you guys out. And have a good afternoon.